You're not doing it alone, right? It's amazing what you can do when you're not doing it alone. Question for you this morning. Can I believe in Jesus without going to church? Can I believe in Jesus without going to church? And the obvious answer is, duh, of course you can. You can believe the Browns are going to win the Super Bowl and never go to a football game, but you still might not be totally connected there. Can I believe in Jesus without going to a local church? But when you ask the wrong question, you get a useless answer. When you ask the right question, you get an answer that can actually help you. Sure you can. Does believing in Jesus, is that what makes you a follower of Christ? Just believing in Jesus. If I believe in Jesus, then I'm a follower of Christ because I believe in Jesus. Well, I don't know about that. America believes lots of things that we don't do. We believe it's good to be kind to each other, yet we have our political candidates right now. We believe it's good to show respect all the time. We believe that it's good to have a hard work ethic. We believe lots of things that we don't do. Can you believe in Jesus without going to a local church? Satan believes in Jesus. A lot of people do. But does that make you a Christian? A better question would be this. Can you follow Christ without connection to other believers? Can you follow Christ without connection to other believers? Now we totally changed the whole game, didn't we? Believe in Jesus? Sure, I believe in lots of things that don't affect me that I don't do anything about. That's easy. I'll believe anything as long as it doesn't cost me anything. But can I be a follower of Christ without being connected to other believers? Because it really doesn't matter squat what I've got to say today. It doesn't matter what your grandpa has to say who wanted to drag you to church all the time. And it doesn't matter what your teenager says who maybe dragged you here today. What did Jesus Christ himself say? Let's take a quick look at that. Jesus said this, "A new command I give you." Read the next three words with me, would you? 1, 2, 3, here we go. Love one another. Yeah, it sounds pretty boring, doesn't it? Hang in there, though. Jesus is talking to the first century. He's talking to a bunch of Jews, and he says, "A new command I give you." They know what commands are. They know the top 10, and they know the other 600 that go. The new command? Good, we're ready for a new command. We got these old commands down. Give us some new commands. Give us some better commands. Love one another? Here's what we don't get, because we don't live in the first century. In the first century, love was not a virtue. Love was not a value. Who's in charge first century? Romans. Love is a weakness. Kindness is a weakness. Fairness is a weakness. Well, Christianity's never done anything good. How do you think love came to be a value and a virtue? Jesus rocks their world when he doesn't say, take advantage of one another. Leverage everything you have to get everything you want. Push down the weak. No, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. How can you love one another if we isolate ourselves from one another? We can't. By this, Jesus said, all men will know that you are my disciples if you believe the right doctrine, if you read the right Bible, if you go to 2 services and attend in 1. Nope. Love one another. How can you love one another if you don't know each other's names? And you don't need to know everyone's name. But do you know 10 names? How can you love one another if we're only, and you've heard us say this many times before, in rows and not in circles, because circles are better than rows. How can we love one another if we're only in rows? You can go to something in rows. It's really fun. You can go, I don't even know, are the Chiefs home today? They're away? Okay. Let's assume the Chiefs are home and you got tickets, man. You can get really mad and excited and yell at the ref and get excited when they score a touchdown and all that with people in rows that you don't know and will never know again. And if they're going through cancer, it doesn't bother you one bit because you don't know them. Yeah, that's their problem, not mine. I'm doing great and we're rejoicing. You're shoulder to shoulder. What about when you stumble? Health, financial, relationships, mental difficulties, illness. Who's face-to-face with you? Quick show of hands. How many are familiar with the Bible verse that's known as John 3:16? Hands up. Yes? All right, good. Usually there's a goober in the end zone holding a sign up, right? Well, the Bible's really boring when it comes to naming books of the Bible. There's John, which is the Gospel of John. Then the same guy wrote 3 letters. 1 John, 2 John, and see, they're creative all over the place. They really know how to name these books with interesting subtitles too. So 1 John, you've heard of John 3:16, for God so loved the world, blah, blah, blah. I want to show you a different John 3:16. It's in the Bible. It's in the first epistle of John, the little letter that he wrote. And it says this. What's love? What's love got to do with it? Here we go. This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us. Period. End of sentence, not end of thought. And we have to lay down our lives for our brothers. And first century writing, that would be brothers and sisters. How can you lay down your life for someone you don't know? Would you lay down your life for somebody you don't know? Maybe TV cameras are rolling, but generally we're not going to do that. But for somebody you know, absolutely. Who do you know? See, right now we see things as a poor reflection. Paul wrote this. We see things as a poor reflection as in a mirror. But then, when we're with God, we will see him not shoulder to shoulder. Face to face. There's a lot of creatures on the planet that are pretty awesome and wonderful. Very few of them connect and relate like we do, face to face. We're going to see him face to face. Even though right now we see like through a glass darkly and it's a little bit cloudy at times and foggy because we're here and he's there, we're going to see him face to face. If we're going to see him face to face and not shoulder to shoulder, don't you think we ought to spend a little bit more time face to face with some other believers in our life and not just shoulder to shoulder with other believers? Because circles are better than rows. And in just a moment, we're going to have some other people share this morning, but if you didn't get a bulletin when you came in, go ahead and lift your hand. We want to get one to you so that when we have some fill-in-the-blank notes, you can follow along if you want. If you don't, no obligation there. But we need to be in relationships with each other face to face, not just shoulder to shoulder, because circles are better than rows.
Community is better. Circles are better than rows. Hey, me and my wife, we came to Flag Church in 2002. Someone invited us. Actually, Wes and Michelle, I just see them right there. They're there. They looked up the ad in the phone book and like, hey, you want to go check out this church? We're like, well, it's an Assemblies of God church. We were brought up Methodist and Anglican. We've heard all of these scary stories about the Assemblies of God, and so we were not sure. So we were like, yeah, we'll just come. We'll visit. It'll be short-lived, and then we'll move on. And 14 years later, we're still here. So, but I think one of the reasons that we're still here is because of life groups, because of community, because of relationships that we've built. Especially for me coming to a different country, this was something that was different because it was a new family that we start to form. And so we started coming here, and we were part of the church, and maybe about 3-4 months into it, and that was when Flag Church was known as currently a small church, according to Pastor Mark, about 25 people. They still saw the need for life groups, even with 25 people. And so they were like, hey, you need to get connected with a life group. We're like, okay, so we'll do that. So we got connected to a life group. And we started meeting, and before long, we started to realize that this life group was becoming more like family to us, that we were connecting on a deeper basis, and that there was a fun environment, a fun atmosphere. There was a common bond that was starting to form. And before long, we realized that we were excited to go hang out at Life Group. We looked forward to those Sunday evenings that we would get to go to someone's house and hang out and just to do life together, where we would talk, where we would eat, we would bring food. Man, food is always good, right? How many of you agree food's really good? So, yeah, exactly. Cool things happen around food. And so we would just hang out and do life together. And like I said before, we looked forward to those times together. And before long, we were like, man, we need to go on a vacation together because it was fun hanging out. So we did a little vacation. It was fun because we got to hang out and do life together. We got to do cool, fun games and our kids that were doing things together. And so it was a great thing. And before long, we realized that we were getting comfortable enough that we were able to share some of our life struggles with each other. which was a scary place to be. And so we started to share what was going on in our life, and we realized that those people that were in our circles were actually there to stand with us when we went through those tough times, or were there to celebrate with us when we went through some great times in our life. And we started to do life together more often. Now, long story short, that life group kind of dismantled, went its own ways, because we live in a college town. People graduate, people move on. We had some that moved to Arkansas, some that moved to Chanute, some that moved to Joplin. And so the life group dismantled, and we started another life group. But one day, there was this phone call that I received from a former life group member. And this is their photograph on the screen, Tim and Melody Parramatta. And this is a photograph that I just grabbed from their Facebook about a week ago. And by the way, we have permission to share this story. So this is going back about four years, I think 4 years or 4.5 years ago. But we got this phone call, and Tim on the phone was like, "Hey man, we're going through a tough time right now." And I was like, "What's going on?" "Well, we're getting ready to file for divorce." I'm like, "What?" Like, yeah, things have been going the way they were supposed to, and we've had a lot of challenges, but we are getting ready to throw in the towel and call it quits. Good thing here is that they had somebody to call. They had someone to call, even though they weren't expecting any results. Well, like, that can't happen. If I remember right, it was a Wednesday night. And so I was shocked. I didn't know what to say. I was like, "You know what, I'll call you back, man." So the first people that I was like, "What should I do?" It's like, "Well, hold on. There are these people that we used to hang out and do stuff together, right? Let me call them." So I called our former life group, and we're like, "Hey, man, here's what's going on." I had actually one family in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm like, "What are we going to do?" And they're like, "Well, there's only one thing we can do. We need to go to Arkansas." So this guy from one of the families in Pennsylvania, they're like, "Hey, I'm getting a ticket. Can you pick me up Thursday evening at Northwest Arkansas Regional Airport?" I'm like, "Great, we'll do that." And the other families were like, "Hey, we're going to come and make the drive out." And then we had Wes and Michelle actually that said, "Hey, we will babysit all the kids, so bring all the kids to our house." So we took all the kids to their house. And here's the verse that I want us to focus on. And Pastor Mark referred to this verse earlier in 1 John 3:16. It talks about how Jesus Christ laid down his life for us. But then it goes on to say, we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. And so that's kind of what had to happen, because we had busy lives, we had things happening, it was not convenient, but we had to put everything on hold at that moment, because we realized there was a brother and sister in our life group or former life group that was struggling. And so we dropped everything and we made our trip to Arkansas that Thursday evening. It was a long night. It was not easy. It was tough. They were not ready to budge, but God moved, because there were people that were willing to stand in the gap. There were people that were willing to stand when they were ready to throw in the towel. Long story short, it did not all fix itself overnight. It took time, but I stand here today, 4.5 years later, to say, man, they have a healthy marriage right now. They are living together. They are doing some amazing stuff. You can see the photograph right there. And not just a healthy marriage. They're involved in a local church. They are serving in a local church. He teaches in the Sunday school. She sings in the choir. They're involved with kids' ministries. Here's the other cool thing. They host a local life group out there in Northwest Arkansas. And all of that happened because they were part of a circle a long time ago. And a circle that was healthy. A circle that was willing to stand up and fight for them when they were not willing to fight. So this morning, if you're in the audience, I want you to ask yourself this question. The question I want you to ask is, who will stand with me when I can't or won't? Who will stand with me when I can't or won't? Because there's going to be situations in your life, not maybe a marriage, but situation, because we live in this world and we go through this journey of life. And when we do that, we have situations that come up that we may be ready to throw in the towel and say, "Hey, I'm done with this." But who is there in your life? Who is in your circle that can sit face to face with you and be there for you when you say, "I can't or won't"? If you don't have an answer to that question, how are you going to handle those situations in your life? What are you going to do? What's the end result going to look like? So next week, as we look at Connect Sunday, as we look at connecting to life groups, I want to ask you to consider, if you're not part of a life group, that you get connected to a life group, because circles are better than Rose.
Hello, my name's Jeremy Johnson, and I was asked to read a letter explaining how I feel about my life group. To anyone wanting more, I was that man. Honestly, I have been part of other life groups. The way I feel about the people in my life group is nothing short of amazing. I gained a new family, in some ways better than some relation. Occasional call or a text through the week gets me more excited for Thursday night when we meet. We share and do life together, grow together. We always, yes, always, have great food, but what's better is the food that we share after dinner, God's Word. The way we share in prayer and praise are open, honest, and with respect to others' views compared to our own is so refreshing. For me, life changed. I took a job that took me away from meeting my new family on Thursday evenings. Each Thursday evening, while I'm at work, I receive a call to join in the opening prayer. That kind of love, food, is far better, lasts longer, and grows my heart, mind, and soul. My want, hope, and desire is that my love for my life group through my testimony will become infectious to you, to connect to a life group. Please remember, little investment gets little reward. Big investment, big reward will last for a lifetime. I challenge all of you who are not yet part of a life group to give it a good, honest try. I believe you won't be able to come to me later down the road and say my life is not any better. I love my life group.
Well, that's an awesome story. So amen to that. But, all right, so I have a question for you guys this morning. Is how many of you live your lives with the, hey, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? Approach. The super, super basic response to almost every person that you meet, right? There's only a few things that you're going to say, because you're never going to say, yeah, actually right now I'm not doing so well. You know, or my life is awful currently. You're going to say, yeah, I'm fine. I'm doing pretty good. I have nothing to complain about. Well, a lot of times that's usually a lie. There's always usually something going on. But we usually keep the truth hidden. We are our own worst enemy when it comes to growth, because we will remain in hardship or struggle a lot longer than we need to, because we're unwilling to admit our struggle to someone else. So I have something for you guys this morning, and it's this. Relationships build trust, and trust creates honesty, and honesty produces growth. So when you're going through tough times and things that you can't handle on your own, you have somebody that is there to guide you through it, to encourage you through it, so that you're not alone. And when we do life together with others, we are stronger. In Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verses 9 through 10, it says, 2 people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. And so ask yourself this. Do my relationships have depth? Do I have depth in my relationships to where if somebody was to ask me how I am doing, I'm not going to give them the basic response and say I'm fine. But rather than saying I'm fine, I will admit what is going on to see what God can do through that. So there's a story that I have that happened recently in a Chi Alpha meeting that we have on Sunday nights. And there were 2 girls that showed up on Sunday night, and it was their first time for both of them. Both, I'm sure they were probably both pretty scared. And we went through our service, we had our food, we had our worship, we did a little lesson, and then afterwards we always do a time of prayer and asking for if anybody needs prayer for anything. And one of the girls opened up and said that she was going through a lot currently, like opened up some serious things from what was going on in her home. And it took a lot of courage for her to do that. But when she decided to do that, that gave the others around her the courage to also do the same. So God did some incredible restoration in that night, because one person chose to speak up about what was really going on in their life, and that encouraged everybody else to do the same. And little did that girl know that there was another girl whose first time it was that was going through the exact same thing, but she was too afraid to speak up about it. But when that other girl decided to say, hey, I'm going to choose to open up about this, it gave her the courage to do the same. And she was able to admit what was going on. And now they have a connection and a friendship knowing that they're not alone and that they have other people around them that care. And now that they can go through that process of growth because they chose to admit. And so there are 3 things that we can learn from that story. And it is this. 1, being there created the relationship. So showing up, it was their first time. Being there created the relationship because they realized that there were other people that they could be friends with. Just showing up. And then the second was relationship created the trust and vulnerability needed. So as we talked and hung out and ate food, the relationship was slowly built. Maybe not super deep, but they had a relationship to where they felt comfortable enough to share something. And then because of that, the trust, honesty, and vulnerability created growth in their lives. That from this point moving forward, that they know that they are no longer alone. They have somebody that cares about them, and that they can run to that person when they are in need. And they know that Jesus loves them because of the love that is around them in that room. And so ask yourself this. Are you giving yourself the opportunity to build relationships that have depth, or are you staying surface level? Are you sticking with the, hey, how are you approach? Or are you choosing to go deeper and really tell what's going on? So I'm going to leave you with this. Again, check it out. Do my relationships have depth?
Better to travel together, is it not? Well, I wanted to share a very personal story of why I believe in life groups. I grew up the youngest of 5 children in a home where my mother took all 5 of us to church every Sunday by herself. And she didn't take us to church by herself because there was no dad present. I had a dad very present and a very active, he was just very present in the home. Good provider, loved that man. But he didn't go to church with us. And I grew up believing, as Mark indicated, yes, you can believe in God without being present in church. But you don't live an overcoming, active Christian faith not going to church and being with other believers. And so I prayed over my dad many a times, cried over his salvation many a times, never knowing that there was a time in his life that he went to church on a very regular basis before I was born. Now, my mom took a job after my older siblings were out of the house that moved her into working every other weekend. And so my dad was faithful to take my twin sister and I to church during that time. And I'm very, very grateful for that. But he took us to church. He didn't attend church with us. He ran errands, go to a flea market, just wait out in his truck until church was over and pick us up. And though I'm very grateful for that, I know that there was more for his life. And it was in his last year of his life, not only did he return to church, but I learned that he went to church on a very regular basis. That was news to me until I was in my 30s. Why is that important? You got to know why he stopped going to church. There was a pastoral transition. And as common in pastoral transitions, people fall away from actively attending. And that was my dad. And I have to wonder, had my dad had a group of people that he connected with on a regular basis, if he had a life group, would there have been a man that would have stepped up and called my dad when they didn't see him after 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row? Would there have been somebody to be bold enough to pick up the phone and say, Dale, I haven't seen you for a while. Where you been, man? What's going on? How can I help? I think the impact on my life would have been tremendous, but the impact on his own life would have been even greater. So this is my question that I want you to ask yourself today. If my pastor connection left, who is left that I would feel connected to? If my pastor connection left, maybe that's Mark and I. Maybe God calls us to a new place. Maybe it's Pastor Eli, and your child's only connection to this church is with that youth pastor. Or maybe it's Pastor Marissa or Pastor Anthony. If your pastor connection left, who is left that you're still connected to? If you can't answer that quickly, if there's not at least 4 names that comes to mind that you are doing those one another's with, Mark alluded to a few of them. There are 59 of them in Scripture. If there aren't some people that you are doing those one another's with, what are you going to do about that? What do you wish you were to do 5 years from now? What do you wish 5 years from now you would do about that today? Can I encourage you? Do something about that next Sunday at Connect Sunday.
My name's Scott Bart, and I belong to Schoolie Life Group, and I've got a letter here that I wrote that I'd like to share. I've written countless notes in this Bible, some to myself, some to others, a bit of third-rate exposition, and even a bit of criticism of the messengers you used to pen this book. But never have I written directly to you. But after reading John 15, specifically the first line in verse 14, "You are my friends," I feel it's time to do just that. By your grace, I've become part of a group affectionately known as the Schoolie Cartel, a merry band of Bible thumpers infinitely better than myself, leading me down a path that I wouldn't have taken on my own, and I thank you for that. I've always seen you as a handsome young man of Nordic descent, the one the WASPs have been pushing for years, but given your birthplace, it's highly unlikely that you look like a Scandinavian rock star. I know my vision of you is racially biased. It absolutely screams Hitler's master race and reeks of Tom Metzger's white Aryan resistance. But knowing it's probably inaccurate still doesn't erase the image I grew up with. But the cartel I mentioned earlier has broadened my views immensely. However, white guys of a certain age have no hope of going panoramic, so not so narrow-minded as I was last Wednesday is the best we can hope for, but I am getting better. Don't worry, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus, you'll always have a place in my heart. But Red has shared her vision of you, a parental figure waiting with open arms. A place to run with good news or troubles. And with her, there is no plan B. It's simply an automatic response. God bless her. And Jim has asked many times, what do you suppose was going through his mind? I'd never considered your cerebral side. In John 8:6, you were writing in the dirt. I assumed you were pausing for effect, but maybe you were weighing the situation. I don't know. But Jim's image makes me think of Rodin's sculpture, The Thinker. And Jennifer, one of our kingpins, in her desire to capture your emotion and give color and texture to the ambiguity of the printed word, amuses me to no end. When one of the whitest, most joyful women you have ever created shakes her finger and bobs her head doing her best rendition of a black woman with too much attitude, it makes my whole day better, putting an almost Oprah-like spin on you. And in the end, my 1973 Ted Neely Jesus gives way to a multifaceted, well-rounded Savior that not only laughs at me, but also laughs with me as friends will do. Not so long ago, this note would have seemed sacrilegious, but I mean no disrespect. I simply feel a rapport that makes you very approachable. Your friend, Scott Bart.
How will you love one another if you isolate yourself from one another? And when you start to isolate yourself from one another, you lose hanging out with people as brilliant as Scott Bart, who you think is just in a Duck Dynasty lookalike contest. He's brilliant. He's got a gift for writing, and his life's been transformed in a living room in town. It first got transformed. He built anything you see cool wood in this building. He built it. The railway there to those steps, he built it. Framing those doors in, the curvy stuff outside in the foyer that looks cool, that's Scott. Who are you missing out on in your life? Who's the answer to prayer? Dear Jesus, please send someone in my life that will blah, 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 with my sister, with my daughter, with my mom, with me, with my spouse. Who is that answer to that prayer that because you hold back when it's time to go face to face instead of shoulder to shoulder, that God's going, I'm trying to send somebody to you, but you're too stinking busy watching Netflix on 5 devices, parking 3 cars in a 5-car garage, and making sure no one can invade our cocoon, our safe cocoon of our life. That is American suburbia, is it not? American small town living. We can just keep to ourselves and we'll hang out with people that are just like us. Scott ain't just like anybody. And I love hanging out with him. So let me ask you a question. That's the picture, a couple years ago, a picture of their life group. It's morphed a little bit. Some of them have left. Some moved away. 2 of them are living in China right now. And I've been in their life group before when they Skyped the Chinese couple in. I'm sorry, there's no Chinese people in it. These 2 are living in China. You're going, which ones are the Chinese? There's not. Think back to your family of origin. Maybe your family of origin was awesome, nuclear mom, dad, 3 kids, healthy dog and everything. Or maybe your family of origin has more splinters than a big pile of firewood. But think back to your family of origin for a moment. Can you imagine the difference in your family of origin if your father was connected to a group of men that when he stumbled, and he did, because you'll stumble. Jesus said plainly, hey, you're going to have trouble in this world. You're going to have trouble. Be of good courage. I've overcome the world, but you're going to have trouble. If he would have been connected to a group of men that when he stumbled, there would have been a group of men that said, we're not leaving. We're not going to let you medicate your way out of this. We're not going to let you drink your way out of this. We're not leaving. What if your parents as a couple were surrounded, maybe your parents are together, most likely they're not. What if your parents as a couple were surrounded by community like Tim and Melody Paramato were that Anthony showed you earlier? That when they started thinking, one Sunday a month is plenty at church. When he started thinking about leaving the family because he got laid off and she started drinking because he came unkind, what if there was a group of people that said, hey, we'll do whatever it takes to help you save the marriage you don't want to save. We'll pay for counseling, we'll watch the kids, we'll take the kids to counseling because after living with you, they probably need it. What if when you were in high school, you had that? You know, because the wisdom you got from your parents, you weren't going to listen to because when you stumble, what you need the most is what you want the least. Repeat. When you stumble, what you need the most is what you want the least. And who will you receive it from? You will not receive it from your family. Your family's been telling you that for years, and you're sick of it, and you got your ears plugged. This is normal. This is human. And so what do your parents do if that's you? Or what do you do if you're praying for your parents? You're going, God, please send someone. Here's my prayer. God, please send someone into my brother's life that he'll actually respect and listen to, because what his older brother has to say doesn't carry any weight anymore. Come on, you have that older brother. You have that younger brother. Maybe you are the older brother, and your younger brother's convinced you're still the moron you were when you were 14. And for some of us, that might still be true. What if you had that kind of accountability in college? And Zeke, as you bring your team up, what if you and your ex-spouse had that? What if you and your ex-spouse had a situation that when your wife said, well, fine, if you won't go dancing go dancing with me, I'll go out dancing with my friends. What if your wife would have had a group of ladies that would have gotten in her face and said, you're going to go out dancing without your husband? Bad idea. Bad idea. Bad idea. Well, Mark, it wouldn't have changed anything anyways. Maybe not. You're probably right. It probably wouldn't have changed anything. But could it have? And would it have been worth the risk? Yeah, yesterday I did 50K, 31 miles. But you know what? If you want to go fast, I could have gone faster by myself. You want to go fast? Go by yourself. You want to go far? Go with others. Go with others. You want to do what you want? You want to go fast? Go by yourself. You want to go far? Go with others. I ran a Tulsa Marathon about a year ago. 14,000 runners out there. The synergy was amazing at the start. There's people all along, like every 2 miles. They got tons of cups of water for you and all that kind of stuff. And it was helpful, the synergy. But you know, compared to the synergy I had yesterday, and I wasn't running with 14,000 around the city twice. At most, I had 10 for the last mile running with me. But the synergy that I felt, the support that I felt, because the people that were in the truck a mile in front of me that had ice and ice mask I can put on, wet rag and whatever goo I needed. And all I had to do was go beep, 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 beep. And they were going to come right to where I was and give me a Gatorade. It wasn't the fact of what they were bringing me. It was the fact it wasn't 14,000 strangers. It was 30 people I know. That I know their story, that I love, that they apparently have put up with me enough in spite of fact knowing my story and in spite of fact of being close enough to me to know my faults. That level of support I got at the Tulsa Marathon feels like this compared to the level of support I got yesterday. If you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, we're better together. Stand with me, would you?